Psychotherapy, the definition of healing, part 9 of 15. The process of psychotherapy then can be defined simply as forgiveness, for no healing can be anything else. This sentence alone dismantles the entire edifice of worldly therapy. The couches, the theories, the endless techniques, none of them touch the root unless forgiveness is recognized as the essence of healing. The unforgiving are sick precisely because they believe in unforgiveness. They cling to guilt as though it were a precious possession. The text calls this hugging close and sheltering, loving protection and alert defense. Guilt is not passively carried, it is actively guarded, cherished and reinforced. It becomes a warped treasure chest the ego will not let go of, because inside it believes lies its very identity. And where guilt is clung to, God may not enter. Not because God refuses, but because guilt is the barricade erected against him. The sick endlessly replay their loss, mourning the separation they think occurred, while paradoxically rejoicing in the drama of it. This is the ego's dirge, its funeral song for innocence. A dirge is a lament for the dead, a funeral chant, a mourning rite. Healing begins when one actually hears this dirge and dares to question its validity. In the Twilight Zone episode The Dummy, Jerry never questions the dirge he sings with Willie. He believes the dummy speaks to him, bites him, torments him, and never pauses to recognize that it is his own mind projecting the voice. Even when Willie tells him outright, Jerry cannot accept that it is he himself who sings the dirge. His tragedy is that he never reaches the first step of recovery, to hear and recognize the sound as his own. To hear the dirge is the first step in healing. To question it is the second. Both are acts of awareness. Until then, the mind is trapped in a funeral procession it mistakes for life, mourning and celebrating its own imaginary death. There is a strong tendency to hear the song of death only for an instant and then dismiss it uncorrected. The mind gets a flash of recognition but quickly looks away. These fleeting awarenesses are the many opportunities given to us to literally change our tune. The dirge can be interrupted, replaced with the sound of healing. But first there must be the willingness to question the supposed truth of condemnation. This is crucial. The ego's dirge is not just a sound, it is a belief system. It calls condemnation truth and disguises death as beauty. The Course says distortions woven into the self-concept by pseudo-creation make this ugly sound seem truly beautiful. The ego sells us discord as harmony, shrieks as angel songs. It tells us the rhythm of death is the rhythm of the universe. But these are lies, masking guilt with a counterfeit melody. This is exactly Jerry's dilemma in The Dummy. His boss calls Willie what he really is, just a block of wood. That was the sound of healing being offered, the correction breaking through. Look, I can turn his head around, I can spin it, see it's nothing. But Jerry cannot bear to hear it. He insists Willie is alive, Willie talks, Willie bites. The showgirls too offer him glimpses. They see the dummy still and lifeless when Jerry isn't there, but he will not take in their vision. The ego defends its dirge by refusing witnesses of truth. Healing is always available, but only if the mind chooses to listen past condemnation's false rhythm to the melody of forgiveness. The ears translate, they do not hear. The eyes reproduce, they do not see. The body's senses are not conduits of truth, they are translators of the ego's wish. Their task is to make agreeable whatever is called upon, however disagreeable it may be. They answer to the mind's decision alone. The eyes do not show reality, they reproduce the desires of guilt. The ears do not hear spirit, they echo the voice the ego wants. Sometimes the thought behind the form breaks through. For a brief instant, reality presses against the veil. But the mind grows fearful and doubts its sanity. And so it rushes to reassert control, commanding its slaves, the senses, not to change the form, not to change the sound. This, the Course says, is both the mind's remedy and its insanity. The perfect illustration is Jerry with Willie. Jerry's agent Frank told him clearly, "It's just wood, just a dummy." That was the truth breaking through. But Jerry's ears did not truly hear it. They translated the words into something else, something filtered through fear. His eyes likewise refused to see wood. They reproduced exactly what Jerry wanted to see, a living, threatening figure that bit him and spoke to him. And it wasn't only Frank. Jerry had already laid on couch after couch, visiting psychiatrist after psychiatrist. Each one told him the same thing, that his only problem was identification. The ventriloquist had become so identified with the dummy that he could no longer distinguish between himself and the dummy. Even when this was spelled out, Jerry would not hear. Even when the truth was spoken directly, he could not see. So he drank to quiet the dissonance, chasing bottles instead of questioning his senses. This is what the paragraph exposes. The senses are not neutral reporters, they are instruments of wish fulfillment. They safeguard the ego's insanity, not spirit's truth. Until the mind itself chooses to change, the eyes will keep reproducing, and the ears will keep translating illusion into seeming fact. These testimonies which the senses bring have but one purpose: to justify attack and thus keep unforgiveness unrecognized for what it is. That is the whole game of perception. The eyes, the ears, the body all bring back witnesses to prove the case for guilt. But the case is rigged. It exists only to keep unforgiveness hidden. Jerry is the perfect example. He justifies the so-called attack from Willie. The dummy bit my finger. The dummy talks to me. The dummy threatens me. By insisting on the attack, Jerry avoids seeing what is really going on. Unforgiveness remains unrecognized. If he were to see it directly, it would be intolerable, because he would have to admit he did it to himself. That's why the ego insists on protection, on disguising the source. The protection is nothing but belief, energy, and story. All sickness is cherished here, cherished because the cause is hidden. For when unforgiveness is not recognized, the form it takes seems to be something else. In Jerry's case, the form is Willie. And now it is the dummy that seems to terrify. But the text is clear. It is not the dummy that can be healed. Willie is not sick. He needs no remedy. Jerry is the one sick with unforgiveness. To concentrate healing efforts on Willie is futility. How can you cure what cannot be sick and make it well? This is the ego's trick. Focus on the form, try to fix the dummy, treat the shadow. But healing only comes by withdrawing belief from the disguise and forgiving the mind that made it. Sickness takes many forms, and so does unforgiveness. But they are not different illusions, they are the same shadow dressed in two disguises. The forms of one produce the forms of the other because both come from the same root. In Jerry's case, the sickness is plain. It is sick to believe a block of wood has power over you. It is sick to believe a lifeless dummy can bite your finger. It is sick to think a bottle of liquor will solve the problem of a voice in your head. It is sick to sit on couch after couch, have psychiatrist after psychiatrist tell you the problem, and still refuse to accept it. These are all forms of unforgiveness, because each one clings to the grievance that Willie is the cause. The Course says a careful study of the form a sickness takes will point directly to the form of unforgiveness behind it. Where you see a sickness, you can be sure a grievance is hiding. some judgment held against yourself or another, some memory clutched as proof that the separation is real. "I can never forgive them for that," is the poison root beneath every symptom. But here's the sharp edge. Just seeing the link is not enough. Insight alone doesn't cure. The cure is only in one recognition. Only forgiveness heals. Only forgiveness dissolves the illusion at its source. Unforgiveness and nothing else gives rise to every form of sickness. The real healing comes not in analyzing the form, but in realizing what I thought my brother did never happened. It comes in recognizing I am seeing something that is not there. It comes in remembering I have given all the meaning this has for me. Forgiveness alone heals because forgiveness alone ends the illusion of cause outside the mind. And with that recognition, both sickness and unforgiveness dissolve together because they were never separate to begin with. This realization that only forgiveness heals is the final goal of psychotherapy. How is it reached? The text gives the key. The therapist sees in the patient all that he has not forgiven in himself. The patient becomes a mirror, giving the therapist another chance to look at his own hidden guilt. And in that reflection, he can open it to re-evaluation and forgive it. When this occurs, the past dissolves. The so-called sins are seen as gone into a past that is no longer here. Until then, evil seems to be besetting him in the present, chasing him in every form. The patient is really just a screen, a projection surface for what the therapist has not let go. And here is where the symbolism flips in the dummy. Jerry is the patient, but in truth, Willie is functioning like the therapist. He is holding up the mirror, showing Jerry what he has not forgiven in himself. Willie literally tells him, "You made me. You put the words in my mouth. You gave me life." That is the uncompromising therapy, returning responsibility to the mind. But Jerry cannot take it in. He sees attack, not reflection. He projects evil onto Willie and insists it is happening now. The text warns, if the therapist, or in this case Jerry, retains even one spot of sin in what he looks upon, his release is only partial and cannot be sure. Jerry clings to the belief that Willie has independent power, that some fragment of guilt belongs out there, and because of that he cannot be healed. Psychotherapy reaches its final goal only when every spot of sin is recognized as a projection, forgiven, and released. No one is healed alone because there is only one mind. If the tide raises one boat, it raises all boats. No boat is left unraised. This is the joy song salvation sings to all who hear its voice. The Course urges, this statement cannot be too often remembered by all who see themselves as therapists. Their patients come not to be fixed, but to be seen as innocent. They are the bringers of forgiveness, the living demonstration that sinlessness is still intact. The patient shows the therapist what remains unforgiven in himself, and the therapist's release comes by recognizing the innocence in both. The story of Jerry and Willie captures this perfectly. Willie demonstrates sinlessness, though Jerry cannot see it. Willie says without words, "I am only the effect, never the cause. You made me. You project onto me. I cannot fix you. You are the ventriloquist." This is the mirror of healing. The dummy never had power. The power was always in Jerry's mind. If Jerry could accept that truth, both would be free. Willie would return to what he always was, a block of wood. And Jerry would return to what he truly is, the decision-making mind, free to choose again. This is the covenant. When the proof of sinlessness is seen in the patient and accepted in the therapist, the mind of both is offered release. They meet, they join, and they are seen as one. No one is healed alone because no one was ever alone. Healing is shared because the mind is shared, and forgiveness extends equally in all directions at once.